On today's show, methane, cobalt and isotopes. What do they have in common and how they're going to save the world? G'day, welcome, my name is Chris and this is your space for everything happening in Australia and well, from sometimes around the world, in the space for renewable technologies like EVs, solar, battery, wind and well more. If you're new to the channel, welcome, consider subscribing. If you want to support me at the next level, join these awesome guys over here on Patreon, where for as little as a coffee a month, you can get exclusive behind the scenes content, early access, polls, news and more that you just don't get here. Alright, so let's get into the news, shall we? What if I told you that this is all it took to get power back on in fire-affected areas of Australia? Yes, some nuts and bolts. With thanks to Mike Cannon-Brookes, Tesla and Australian solar company 5B, they've installed 2 so far and, well, can do at least 100 more in the next 100 days. Kinda sounds familiar, doesn't it? Anyhow, this solar and battery system is by the newly formed company Resilient Energy Collection with a donation of $12 million from the Cannon-Brookes Family Foundation. And it's made up of 5B's rapid deployment system. Now, I've covered this previously on the show and, well, these 12 kilowatt systems can be up and running in literally minutes. They're pre-assembled in a factory, transported on a truck, put into action, and well, if you're in fire affected zones, they can be put up or dismantled in minutes. This is amazing. To think that getting one up and running and to remove it if the threat of fire is coming your way is a serious game changer. Many remote communities have diesel generators for power, and these massive machines cannot be decanted of the fuel and put in the back of a truck in minutes like this. No way. So once the 5B solar array is in place, then comes Tesla with its Powerwalls, and in the space of one day, you got power back on. Not like the weeks or months, which is like the current prospect facing fire-affected zones. Waiting for those high voltage power lines, yeah, that takes time. Getting back to the grid takes a lot of time. So, these systems are scalable and range in size from 8 kilowatt hours up to 400 kilowatt hours and allow homes, businesses to operate off-grid 24 hours a day. Yes, solar can work at night, you know. Importantly, they power vital services like running police and rural fire services, like the radio stations and towers and things like that. And well, they're already up and running in Cobargo, New South Wales, and Goongarra in Victoria. And well, how good is this? The installation at Cobargo is like a standalone off-grid solar battery system and has helped to reconnect electricity to vital emergency communication towers for the police, rural fire service, national parks and the local shire. This site has meant that one of the local firefighters who used to spend up to 5 hours a day, imagine that, 5 hours a day to keep the old diesel generator going, is now actually returned to other more important duties. Plus, as the system operates 24/7, it basically won't need to be refueled, will it? No. So, compared to existing diesel generators, these systems are 50% cheaper to buy and have a true impact that is already being felt. Giles Parkinson of Renew Economy noted that people in the communities were amazed that this is possible, with many thinking that technologies such as this were 10 years away. And you know, that's one of the reasons I do this show. I want people to learn about what tech is available now that can reduce our impact on the environment, and this is just one way that we can get our energy supplies to our bushfire affected areas more quickly and make them more resilient. As Mike Cannon-Brookes said, as a nation, we've got to learn the lessons of this summer and invest in energy systems that help the planet, not hurt it, that are resilient, not brittle, that are fast and flexible, not slow and fixed, and most importantly, reduce bills. In the future, we see a world in which many remote communities operate on solar power, off the grid. It'll be more stable and more resilient and less prone to damage. Indeed, this very idea was floated way back in 2016 following the bushfires in WA. But heck, here we are, 4 years later, and we're still building massive interconnectors which are being broken by storms, lightning strikes, and more. So, creating your own power or maybe joining a virtual power plant that operates local is keeping the lights on and is giving resilience to many. Okay, good news, bad news. What's your poison? The bad? Okay. Methane emissions are up. like way up. The good news, well, now that we know about it, we can actually do something about it. Published on Thursday, the 20th of February, it turns out that humans are emitting more than 96% of fossil fuel methane emissions. Previously, estimates put this figure at about 66 to 75%, but it turns out to be a lot higher. Published in Nature today, scientists found that human activity is the source of nearly all atmospheric fossil methane, a kind that comes from underground. And well, this is certainly not good, as well methane is far more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. But conversely, methane's actually got a shorter lifespan of about 10 years compared to carbon's 20 to 200 year lifespan. Yeah, 200 years. So now you know why it's important to tackle carbon emissions now, right? Okay, so no doubt, a question out there that some might have is, Chris, how do they actually know it's caused by humans? Because, well, it turns out that looking at if an isotope, which goes by the name carbon-14, is present or not, will determine whether where it actually comes from. For instance, biogenic methane comes from things like plants, animals, and wetlands, whereas fossil methane, that was buried long ago, before being released into the atmosphere as a result of either human activity from burning fossil fuels or naturally from geological gas seeps or certain types of volcanoes. And so they can also recognize that methane because it doesn't carry the carbon-14 isotope. Simple, huh? Oh, what's that? Volcanoes are to blame for the high CO2? Yeah, nah, just look, go and read this, or look, I'll put it down below so you can actually go check it out yourself. And as per usual, all links and references that I talk to on this show can be found down there. So yeah, once you've looked into the volcanoes and global climate change, come back here then. Okay, thanks, appreciate that. So, total annual emissions of fossil methane from both natural and human activity is estimated to be between 172 and 195 million tons, way up from previous estimates of between 40 and 60 million tons. That means that humans are actually emitting more than 96% of fossil methane. So now that we understand this, let's get out there and start doing something about it. Alright, time for one of my favorite segments, mail time. And this one's obviously going to be kind of short because last week I only did the one video that, most of you saw, except for my Patreons, and that was on nuclear power in Australia. And at the time of filming, a total of 366 people had seen it. And yeah, I hope to get a lot more views because, man, that video took me a very long time to do. About 2 weeks of research and about a good week of editing. And wow. I've got to say I'm very proud of it, but conversely, I think it's something that we unfortunately need to have because following the ABC poll, where they surveyed about 54,000 people, roughly 34% of Australians actually support nuclear power. And for the reasons I put into that video, be it either security concerns, the health concerns, but largely the economic concerns, I don't think people really realise as to what it means to have nuclear power. It was definitely something that was great and awesome way back in the 50s, 60s or 70s. That was the height of it. But since then, renewable technologies have come along and they just changed the game. And as you've already heard today so far, these communities in the bushfires, the bushfire communities, some people don't even realise that, yeah, you can get these massive batteries that can power radio transmitters and get action happening like that. Okay, so again, share this story if you can on your socials. That'd be much appreciated. So let's have a look at some of the comments, shall we? Basically, almost everyone was very supportive of it. There were some comments around thorium and its potential, and look, this has supposedly been coming in the last 10 years, and research is still suggesting it's another 10 years off before it actually gets to a scalable size. But what that ultimately means is that the fission technology using thorium will mean that the radioactive waste, the higher level waste that comes out of that, is only dangerous for about 200 years. Now, to me, that still is acceptable because you still had that security concern around it, plus the health hazards of it. And to think that 200 years ago, That wasn't too long after settlement in Australia, and life back then was remarkably different to now. So to think 200 years from now what this is going to look like I just can't fathom why you want to generate that type of waste, let alone spend all that energy, money and carbon pulling it out the ground. Yes, nuclear is a low emitting source of energy. Yes, it's great at providing a good stable base load, but as you've already learned, there are technologies out there that can do this better already in the renewable space. So why throw at least a third more money at something to give yourself, well, not even the bang for your buck? What the poll results on YouTube like? Well, let's have a quick look at that, shall we? 7% of you said that you support nuclear power and 93% of you don't. And on Twitter, I did a survey over there and I asked, do you support nuclear power in Australia, because why? And the results were this. 40.3% said that, well, it was actually emissions-free energy technology, whereas 19.5% said it, well, wasn't coal or gas. 18.2% said it was a reliable energy source, and well, the other 22.1% were like, well, give me a comment, and they were almost all negative, like, I don't support nuclear power in Australia whatsoever, Chris, and here's why, yada yada yada. And this is great because, well, 77 people actually gave me some feedback on this one. That's awesome to hear from you. Honestly, it really is, either pro or con, I don't mind. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like, well, just remember, all technology, be it renewables like solar, wind, hydro, they also too have a CO2 output, and nuclear is the same. It's not emissions free. Alright, so I think enough is enough, and look, I really do appreciate you watching the full video, and well done to you all said you made it. Like, yeah, it's a big watch and I really do appreciate that. Alright, let's get into some more news, and well, I think it's time for some bites. Bites is where I give you a short, bite-sized little bit of news, and it's going to be quick and fast. Ready? Alright, here we go. Volkswagen announced on Thursday, the 13th of February, that its new concept vehicle, the ID. Crozz, looking a bit like a bit of a crossover mixed with the coupe, where this mini, well, SUV, I don't know if it's mini, but I think it is, will be set upon the company's modular electric drive matrix, or MEB platform, to deliver 225 kilowatts of power, a top speed of 180 kilometers per hour, and an estimated range of 500 kilometers. No date is announced just yet, but it's kind of looking like a compelling car nonetheless. Tesla Australia has finally started taking orders for the solar roof tiles. At present, there's only one texture style available and no hint as to when they're actually going to be installed. This system, which was first unveiled several years ago, has recently been updated and will no doubt look good on people's homes, and well, prices on the application. Zero Motorcycles unveiled its latest motorcycle, the Zero SRS, a sports electric motorbike that looks to me like a BMW F800 GT. The new model can go up to 320 kilometers on a city jaunt or 160 kilometers on a freeway scoot. Priced at $20,000 US. This wouldn't be cheap to import into Australia, but is another compelling reason that maybe electric motorbikes are being led by, well, Zero. Okay, one last one. Tesla, along with Chinese battery maker Contemporary Amperex Technology, or CATL as I'll prefer to call them, is supposedly making cobalt-free batteries. Now, these are just rumors, but the reports in the mainstream media are out there, and well, the prospect of getting away from cobalt is an important one. Why? For me, it stems from countries that mine it with unethical practices of using child labour and hazardous work conditions. It's one of the most expensive components used in the manufacture of electric vehicle batteries. And well, to be able to remove them from lithium-ion batteries will mean the savings in supposedly double-digit %, according to some reported through brochures. Okay, now here's a little fun factoid that you can throw at your next dinner party when you talk about electric vehicles and someone at the table says, yeah, but don't they use cobalt in them as well, Chris, and that's really bad because, you know, for those reasons? And you can go, yes, definitely, and they're getting there. They seriously are, they've been working on it. But in the meantime, did you know that petrol cars actually use cobalt as well? All crude oils have a sulfur component of like 0.1 to 2.5%, and that they use cobalt to convert this sulfur into hydrogen sulfide or sulfuric acid, and they reduce sulfur's like global warming impact. They also decrease the chance of acid rain, and also the occupational hazards for employees working in refineries. The UK has announced that it's bringing forward its ban on internal combustion engine cars, plug-in hybrids and hybrids. Why is this? Well, because the UK Committee on Climate Change said that if the UK government didn't do so earlier, their goal of being CO2 free by 2050 wouldn't be met. That is, if they allow people to buy these cars that require fuel for too long, then a decade between the ban and 2050 would not be enough to curb their emissions. The move, which is like 15 years away, will still mean that people can sell their second-hand ICE cars, but all new ones will have to be 100% electric. This obviously hasn't gone down very well with legacy car makers who want more time to get ready for such a change. But fortunately, consumer interest in electric cars has spiked, as seen through searches for EVs that increased by 162% following Boris Johnson's announcement. So, my viewers, let me know your thoughts. Is 15 years enough for car makers to prepare for this? In my book, yes. Because without a target, they'll just keep stalling and delaying the inevitable. And in the process, they're just going to continue to pollute as much as they can for as legally as long as they can. That's a whole other subject. Anyway, I just wish that Australia would not rely so much on technology to save us from ourselves, but instead did things like this, which are ambitious and provide a roadmap to everyone as to where the world is heading. And for that reason, I think it's time that we do Promises is a segment I like to do about what our politicians are and, aren't doing in the space of renewable technology. And today, I'm going to revisit the subject of EV subsidies. And, sadly, it looks like there's been no changes in this space since I last did a bit of a deep dive in 2019. At federal level, Australians are lumped with the luxury car tax, which for fuel-efficient vehicles, which obviously electric and hybrid cars fall into, tax-free threshold of $75,526. Now, to my international viewers, what this actually means is that if I was to buy an EV, which cost me more than this magic dollar amount, then the sticker price of the car goes up by 33% on the amount above this threshold. For instance, a Tesla Model 3 performance in New South Wales, that means an additional luxury car tax of $5,969. Stamp duty of $4,170, registration and CTP costs of $946, and a local plate fee of $150. That's about $12,000 in additional costs. Now, in the US of A, they don't have the luxury car tax. And in certain states, they have EV subsidies or tax incentives, however you want to call them. But the exact car is, significantly cheaper. For example, the same car will cost you about $56,990 American dollars or about $86,000 Australian. Why this $12,000 difference? Well, it's obviously that bunch of taxes that doesn't help. And there's definitely a gap there. And, thankfully, this was pointed out to Elon Musk this last week that maybe Tesla can provide us little Aussies with a bit of assistance down under. But nonetheless, with Holden announcing its withdrawal from Australia and some other right-hand drive markets, the breadth and availability of electric cars means that they're still very rare and they're still very expensive. If we are going to get to a zero carbon emissions sooner, we need the support of people who can help us achieve this target, one car at a time. So looking around the country, the best one out there is actually the Australian Capital Territory, that for brand new electric vehicles, you pay zero stamp duty for the initial purchase and receive a 20% discount on registration. In my hometown of Victoria, electric vehicles are exempt from the luxury vehicle rate of stamp duty, paying a flat rate of $8.40 per $200 of market value, rather than the $18 for polluting vehicles. Okay. Additionally, all electric vehicles in Victoria receive a $100 annual discount on the rego. In Queensland, electric and hybrid vehicles pay reduced stamp duty at $2 per $100 up to $100,000, then $4 per $100 value thereafter, compared to $6 per 100 for conventional ICE cars. Oh, math! Now, compared to other international programs, I think you would agree that our programs are very light on helping people transition to clean green transport. You only need to look at America, UK, Norway to see how successful they have been at getting people into electric mobility. Meanwhile in Australia, despite triple growth in 2019 of electric car sales, that's largely due to the Model 3 mind you, electric vehicles still only represent about 0.6 of total sales of cars. Yeah, subsidies help. Let me illustrate. Check out this chart which shows what happened in China after they reduced their subsidies. See how from January to June it was year on year up to almost 200%. 200%! But then, in July, when subsidies were reduced, demand also dropped. So, in a country such as China, that per capita is beating Australia on carbon emissions, that is to say, they're actually better, guess what they're doing? Yeah, they're considering reintroducing EV incentives. Maybe for not emission reasons, but I'd like to think so. With more than 10% of Australia's carbon emissions coming from light vehicle use, let alone heavy vehicles like trucks, which typically burn the dirtiest of all petrols, diesel, we need either like tax breaks, subsidies, targets, and more. And how are we going to do that? Through our politicians. So here's what we all need to do, okay? You got to petition your local or federal member of parliament. Ask them, consider cutting GST, stamp duty and luxury car tax on EVs. Introduce emission standards, better, tougher standards, more like Europe's. Maybe ICE car bans like they did in the UK. And then, well, at a minimum, increase the luxury car tax threshold. See this? This is a table of luxury car tax threshold since 2009. Notice in the right column, it's increased year on year. In 10 years, that threshold has grown more than 14%. Yeah, so you go buy yourself a nice, dirty, big, guzzling car. Guess what? That car has been effectively kind of, well, a bit cheaper compared to an electric vehicle that has only grown by a mere, not even 1%. Yeah, it's been stuck at that $75,000 mark for 10 years. So if I were to correct this and this figure now was more like $87,000 adjusted, okay, that would mean like a Model 3 long range in Victoria would only pay $140 on it instead of $3,569. More affordable cars like the Nissan Leaf 2 or Renault Zoe, axing taxes on them could see them coming in around the mid to high $30,000 bracket. And when buyers see that fitting in their price point, the savings that they get from fuel as well as servicing, Australians will start buying more and more EVs and making our air cleaner in the process. Now, obviously, we need to pay our taxes to run our country, to keep services going and all that. And look, that's definitely a future discussion that we need to have. But right here, right now, we need to get moving on this fast. Time for one last segment, and this week's FYI, that's like a 2-minute piece that I do designed to get the facts straight around climate change. It's going to be on the argument that some use by climate deniers that warming the world is actually a good thing. Yeah, it's warming here, it's fine, yeah. Okay, so here and now, I'll record this FYI segment, but I'll also post it separately on this playlist, wherever it might be, plus I'll put the little link down below as well, so that you can post it on your socials, okay? Especially when you speak to some fool who spruiks this type of stuff. Okay, ready? This is fine. Since day zero, the Earth has seen both cold periods as well as warm periods, and this warm stuff is going to be great for plants and, well, the humankind. Let's talk about that. During high temperature periods, more than 5 times as many elderly or infirm people die. That and tropical diseases like malaria and dengue fever also increase. As temperature rises, so does the rate of polar and glacier melting, ocean acidification and sea levels, meaning that animals lose their habitat, food supplies for everyone dwindles and becomes non-existent, and the argument that as areas warm, the plants that they grow there can simply change and adapt is, well, simply not true. Plants require a certain soil, amount of light per day, a certain humidity, temperature and precipitation, and, well, a lot more. So what you can grow right now in Queensland can't necessarily be grown over in Western Australia. Water supplies will be put in jeopardy for more than 1 billion humans, and the property and livelihoods of those who live or work near coastlines and low areas could be gone forever. Additionally, as oceans warm and ice sheets melt, the protected nature of ice to shield the sea from solar heat is lost, and that creates a vicious cycle of ever-increasing water temperatures. This means that glaciers release more methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas, and well, it turns out that we humans are responsible for 96% of fossil methane emissions already, and well, let's not add more to it by increasing this glacier degradation rate. My name is Chris. If you want to know more, look me up on YouTube, where you can find articles related to this and well, even more. Okay, that will do it for today's show. I really do hope you've enjoyed it, and I want to thank you for watching. If you haven't already, consider subscribing, as it really does support the channel. If you've got questions or comments from me, leave them down below. I really do want to hear from you. And hey, next week maybe your little comment will get on screen and I answer it. Maybe, who knows. If you'd like to support me at the next level, consider joining us over on Patreon, where you get early access content, polls, and news that you just don't see here. And well, these guys, these are producer level as well. Ashley Hill, Tessa and the Gong, MN ICT Specialists, and Angelo, they all get their names read out every week. And yeah, you can join them too. So check us out below or up here, wherever it might be on the screen right now. And you be good and you be green.